Conversation objectives for this morning is just a bit of an overview in regards to our project, a bit of a harassment overview, as well as how it's connected to Saskatchewan statistics and understanding the impact of harassment in the workplace and exploring some of those best practices that you might see covered in our workshops, our bystander training, and a little bit more about employment coaching and some local resources. So we've got a jam-packed time, next 20 minutes together today. So, just a gentle reminder, we are going to be talking about gender-based violence. So please take good care of yourself. As we all know, this session is recorded currently right now. So if you need to step back and step away, just take care of yourself. I know we all have lived experience to whatever extent in this area. So I just am cognizant of that as we explore the subject matter. So EnoughAlready is fully funded through Justice Canada. We launched in 2020, and it's a multi-stakeholder coalition determined to address and prevent workplace sexual harassment in Saskatchewan. And we're committed to working with business, government, industry associations and unions, and educators and community organizations to make workplaces throughout Saskatchewan safe for everyone. So we know that a lot of community-based organizations don't have an HR manager. So how can we support those organizations in providing policy examples and support in some of that work? So we really wanted to try and be innovative in our approach and really be supportive to folks at various levels. So the Partnership Coalition, it includes the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission, Create Justice of a College of Law at the University of Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan Chamber of Commerce, Sexual Assault Services of Saskatchewan, and the Saskatoon Industry Education Council. So these folks saw that the numbers just consistently were going up and up in our province, and they really wanted to take an evidence-based approach to really start to tackle this tough issue. So I'm really proud of what we're able to do, and our job is really about increase of awareness of sexual harassment in Saskatchewan, provide support and education, and then we really want to reduce and prevent incidences of sexual harassment in the workplace and bring about change in long-established societal attitudes and behaviors and really showcase those leading practices. So I also want to acknowledge that our mission and mandate is addressing sexual harassment, but most of our presentations is around bystander leadership, and most of it is about creating healthy and respectful workplaces. So it's not just about tackling sexual harassment, but we give employees tools and strategies on what to do when they witness racism, sexism, ageism, whatever type of problematic behavior may pop up in the workplace. So I'm really proud that absolutely we're working to create safer workplaces, but doing it at a variety of levels and making it really accessible and not heavy-handed, is trying to be self-reflective and engaging and allow people to reflect on their own personal thoughts on how they think about conflict and how they talk to others when they see something happening. So some of the ways that we can support you, we've got a trove of resources at our website at EnoughAlreadySK.ca. Whether you are an employee, an employer, not sure where to start, or maybe you identify as a survivor or somebody who's been impacted by sexual harassment in the workplace, there's some great information there. So please consider that as a resource that's available to you. As well, all of our workplace training is completely free of charge. So I always forget to lead with that, and folks are like, how much does it cost? And I'm like, $0. We are fully funded. So $0 to talk to us and $0 for us to come in and work with your teams. And then they're all customized to your workplace. We incorporate your own internal policies. We incorporate the internal supports you already have in place. And then we also connect survivors to supports. So I had one person ask, well, where's your workshop for survivors? And I'm like, every workshop is for survivors. We incorporate information in there to support survivors wherever they're at in their journey, and giving them information and tools and resources, and hopefully they'll connect with us afterwards if they have follow-up questions. So yeah, we do have a registered social worker as a project lead for a reason, right? We want to make sure folks are getting the right information in a meaningful way. So the three types of harassment we cover in our workshops is harassment based on prohibited grounds, personal harassment, and sexual harassment. So that's a really nice opportunity to sort of give people a same baseline information, because when I talk about harassment, maybe it's not how you understand harassment. So we explore definitions, we look at examples, how it manifests in the workplace. I know when I first started this, I was like, I don't think I've really experienced it. And then we started digging into the examples and how it looks in the workplace. I'm like, oh yes, that is definitely something I've navigated. I like to cover three main myths when it comes to this work. Sexual harassment only occurs in the workplace. That is false. It covers incidents that occur at work and during work hours. However, sexual harassment can also occur outside the usual workplace and work hours, at work-sponsored social events, during Zoom meetings, conferences, and other occasions that are connected to your employment. And then the other one, only women are impacted by sexual harassment. That is absolutely false. So our statistics shows that 1 in 5 Canadian men are impacted by sexual harassment compared to 1 in 3 Canadian women. So we need to do better to create space for men to be able to articulate their experiences in that. And I've definitely talked to survivors who, talk about the fact that they stop going to the lunchroom because they're really uncomfortable at the tone and the subject that's being discussed at lunch. So what are the things that they've done to sort of create that space where they feel safe in the workplace? And we need to do better to create that space for men. And one of the things we started doing is doing an annual survey. We call 400 people across Saskatchewan and ask what their understanding is of sexual harassment, levels of impact, commitment and comfort, and to come forward to file a complaint and that type of thing. One of the stats that came out of that is that 40% of Saskatchewan residents have either been harassed or know someone who has. And I asked this question during every single one of our presentations. We use Mentimeter throughout the presentation to help sort of make it personalized and reflect somebody's journey. And inevitably, on our calls, I would say most of our presentations have between 70 and 90% of people, once you go through definitions and once you go through sort of explaining what harassment looks like, 70 to 90% of people who are in our workshops have personal experience or know someone who's experienced harassment in the workplace. And what's really powerful about that is that I am like a special guest star that comes into your workplace. And I know not everybody is committed to this work like I am. And I know there's going to be somebody in a room who's got their arms crossed, who is eye rolling and asking themselves, why are we having this conversation at work? And when it gets to this slide, and when I ask folks in the audience about personal experience, this is when the tone of the conversation changes. Because when we've got 80% up to 100% of the people on the call who are saying, yes, this personally has impacted me, that changes everything, because you respect people you work alongside, you support, you care for the people you work alongside, right? And this is a deeply personal issue, which is just sort of reinvigorates people's need to help build those tools and strategies to create that safer work environment. So our presentation is really focused on addressing this one. So 71% of Saskatchewan residents say they have limited knowledge of what to do when they witness harassment or when they see something happening. So we want to build those strategies, tools, and options available. So instead of that freeze response, we can move them through freeze and potentially have some options available to them depending on how they feel about what's going on. So 32% of women and 26% of men, these come from Stats Canada, have not received any information from their employer on how to report sexual harassment or sexual assault. So it's a nice reminder to post your policies regularly. Tell your teams what you have available. And we go through different stats depending on what industry you work in. I would be curious to know, what is the impact of folks who are in community-based organizations? What is the rate of harassment in that area? That's a stat I haven't been able to track down, but human service industry, there's definitely some areas we can grow upon. In this one, so 47% of our 2S LGBTQ plus workers had experienced inappropriate sexualized behavior and discrimination based on their gender identity, or sexual orientation at work, compared to non-2S LGBTQ plus workers. We all know that when you're harmed at work, it doesn't stay at work. It comes home with you, right? So how is that harassment impacting you at all levels? And OH&S between 2019 and 2020 had 393 harassment investigations within a 2-year period. So if you break that down, that's almost 1 formalized harassment complaint in the province per working day. So we all know that this is something we can do better on. And we want to talk about the impact on victims. And I use that term because people know what I'm talking about, but I also recognize that not everybody identifies with that language. So typically I use it interchangeably with people who have been impacted by sexual harassment in the workplace, because not everybody may identify as a victim, not everybody may identify as a survivor. So I just want to acknowledge that in our conversation today. We know that the majority of people do not formally report. There's no judgment from our end in regards to what somebody decides to do. We just want somebody to know their options and know what's available to them. And we talk a little bit about how you choose to deal with it. Maybe it's isolation, assistance of friends or coworkers, or tolerating the behaviors, or denying or downplaying the situation, and then leaving the organization. And you may experience professional consequences. So if you've got a perpetrator on a subcommittee, you're not going to want to join that subcommittee, right? So are you limiting your ability to move up in your organization because of that presence of the perpetrator? And there's obviously a decline in commitment and psychological attachment to the organization, as well as financial impacts. And then an increase in anxiety, panic attacks, illness, mental health issues, and some folks have debilitating PTSD that they navigate every single day for the rest of their lives as a result of harassment in the workplace. And there's obviously a reduced ability to feel motivated and a reduced commitment to the organization. When you're actively being harmed at work, you're not going to be giving 110%, right? And we also reflect on the non-target employees. So inaction by the employer to deal with situations can result in decreased job satisfaction, organizational commitment, a valid fear of becoming the next target, and a concern of lack of fairness. So it isn't just limited to the perpetrator and the person who experiences the harassment. We all feel that energy. We all feel how that feels in a space. And then business impacts: absenteeism, turnover, low productivity, reduced individual and team performance, toxic workplace culture. I'm sure many of us have organizations in our past that we would never want to work at again because of culture, right? Legal claims, settlements, damage awards, lost time, declines in profitability, and reputation harm. I'm sure many of us can remember an organization they've read about in the last year because of how they handled or mishandled a situation, right? That reputation harm follows an organization for many, many years to come. So we have different workshops for different audiences. So it can be a workshop for leadership. It can be a workshop for your team. It would be the subject matter you would see completely ahead of time, so you would not be surprised by anything we're discussing. But within the employer responsibility, we remind folks that they're legally responsible for creating a safe, healthy, and respectful workplace free of harassment and related retaliation, and that employers are responsible for the actions for their management and supervisory personnel. So it's a good setting the bar and raising the bar, because you deserve a safe work environment. And then we can walk through some best practices and preventative measures and approaches that can really enrich work environments. This is the biggest piece in our training. We do a lot of bystander leadership training. I would say the bulk of our work is in bystander leadership. And what I love about this is that it is extremely accessible. So research shows, and there's solid research behind this, that if somebody speaks out, maybe others will too. And that we can really empower people with knowledge and options if you see something happening. But we want to validate that there are real fears for taking action in a workplace. So those fears could include retribution, scare of the harassment turning on them, no one else is doing anything, or I don't know enough about the context of the situation, or they're scared they'll be labeled a troublemaker, or they don't know what to do, or they're scared that no one will believe them. These are valid fears. So the main pieces we walk through is intervention, distraction, find help, be supportive, and document. I liken it to a buffet. You know, when you go to a buffet, you don't choose everything, right? You figure out what works best for you. How are you feeling that day? What is your communication style with the people in front of you? We know that there's different power dynamics at play, different egos at play, right? So what are the things that you can contemplate when you're thinking about those pieces? So every single one of these options is great. Even if you don't intervene, you could distract. Even if you don't distract, maybe you find help. Even if you don't do any of those things, how do you be a supportive person to your coworker after the fact? So we create like verbal prompts, things to say, what's helpful, what's not helpful. And then finally, the role of documentation. So even if somebody doesn't want to file a complaint, I still want you to document. And I talk about the benefit of documentation and why it's helpful. One of the pieces we talk about is maybe the behavior gets worse. And 6 months from now, finally, they're like, okay, Brandy, I'm ready. I want to go talk to our supervisor. And then Brandy can say, remember what happened on September 20th? I have that documented. Let's put it in with your complaint so you have more evidence to talk about what you've been navigating for the last 6 months. So really sort of giving people tangible tools on what they can do in those instances when you see things. I also want to let folks know about some really great resources that a lot of people don't know about. So there's the SHIFT project put on by PLE, which is the Public Legal Education Association. If you know anyone who's experienced sexual harassment in the workplace, or even if they think they may have, they can get up to 4 hours of free legal advice, which is very cool. And something that a lot of folks don't realize they can do. They do have to disclose their name and the perpetrator's name because they have to run a conflict of interest check to get you connected to a lawyer, but that's an option that's available to folks. The other thing is that we've got employment coaching at EnoughAlready. So research shows if you've been harmed in the workplace, you're going to have additional barriers to re-entering the workplace. So we've got a team of trauma-informed employment coaches that can help support people in updating their resume, practice Zoom interviews, or whatever the case may be. It is all survivor-led and really sort of supporting people on their healing journey. So please check out our website and consider scheduling a consultation with us. Or if you're like, I don't think we actually need the training, but if you feel like this would be helpful for us to even provide a project update to your team, please let us know, because you get connected to survivors that I have no access to. So if there's some linkages and bridges that we can make to help support survivors on their journey, please consider us a resource. I know I did a presentation to the Regina Sexual Assault Center, and I think within a month I had one of their staff on the phone and she's like, I've got a survivor in the room. Okay, we're walking through options. Here's what I said. And I'm like, okay, don't forget this and this, right? So I could provide staff support and whatever that looks like. We really want to just sort of support people in their journey, and whether we provide consultation through a phone that you can relate to folks that come into your organization, whatever it is, we're here to support you in your journey. The other note I wanted to let you know about is November 16th and 17th, we're hosting our second public training event. So it is $50, but it's 2 mornings of training, and it counts for PD hours at CPHR and the Law Society. But we've got 2 keynotes, and they're incredible keynotes. We've got Anna Maria Tremonti from the CBC, who's going to be talking about what it's like to be a woman in broadcasting in Canada. And then we've got Mia Kirshner, who's a really well-known Canadian actress who has talked about her experience in the arts industry and a part of the after Me Too movement, and just doing incredible work in that area, and really challenging the arts industry to do better in regards to supporting artists. We've got sessions on trauma-informed investigations and really tangible takeaways, really thinking about organizations that don't have HR departments behind them. How can we support them in their journey and creating a more respectful and healthy environment for folks? So I plowed through a lot of information, and hopefully my timing is okay. So calls to action is tell 5 folks about our presentation today. Follow some social media. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as well, and talk to your friends and family about what you learned. And please consider talking to your work environments about bringing us in, whether it's bringing our bystander leadership training to your group of youth that you work with, or with your staff. We can translate this information to all the audiences we can. So we want to work with you and get this information out. Anytime we can break the cycle and get folks engaged in knowing what a healthy, respectful workplace is, the whole province is better for it. So I really appreciate your time today, and very excited to learn more about Brandy this morning. So thank you so much.